about resident council. And it is essential that you run a resident council group. It is very important because resident council is one of the few places where they can anonymously come and report their concerns about how the systems are running or what's going on in the building. So we have to run it in sort of a very precise way, and we must at first set the building up so we have a private area where we can run resident council. So that means if you have a room with windows in it where they can see in, you have to either draw the drapes or cover up the window doors things so people cannot see who is in that meeting. Again, remember, the reason you have to do that is because it's anonymous. We don't want any retribution from any person who comes to that meeting to share their thoughts and feelings, to have any retribution from a staff member that walked by and saw them in and say, oh, I bet you they were complaining about me, and then repercussions happen. The other thing I'm going to warn you about too is once in a while I've had an administrator that say, hey, did so-and-so complain about this again? And you have to maintain their privacy. And so it's important for you to say, look, there were several people in that meeting. They all voted on the food, and I don't know who said what about which item on the food, but I took a vote, and 4 out of 5 people said that there was a problem with it. But I never, ever put a person's name next to an issue, nor do I ever tell anybody outside of that meeting who said what on any one issue. So that's very important that that resident council is anonymous. The thing that you need to remember most about resident council is people are a little bit upset sometimes. Sometimes they're happy and they have a lot of praises, don't get me wrong. But sometimes they're coming there because they want to change an issue or change a problem or make you aware of a problem. And why this is very important is because they need the opportunity to have that expression, and they need to have good follow-up to see if anything was done about it. And the second reason why it's very important is because if an issue comes up on the resident council notes 3 months in a row, it will automatically become an issue that the surveyors will want to look at and look at your follow-up to see how did you correct the problem. So that is important to know, that resident council really is a powerful tool when it's used right. So now how do we run this meeting so it doesn't go haywire and everybody just starts yelling at each other? What you need to do is follow Robert's Rules of Order. And in doing that, it makes sure that if we have an issue on the table, I will stop the meeting and say the issue on the table is that the green beans are cooked too hard. How many people feel that the green beans are cooked too hard? Please tell me. Yes, the green beans are cooked too hard, and I have 5 out of 7 people that have voted for that, and I have 2 people that didn't want to vote, and I have 2 other people who said that they were too soft. So I'll put that in the notes. So what I do is I take the issue and then I show who voted in which way, but I never put the name next to it. The other thing that you need to do is you need to go through all the departments. So you have to ask questions for activities, for the nursing department, for the dietary department, for housekeeping, for maintenance. The only time that you put somebody's notation next to maintenance is if we need to tell what room something needs to be fixed in. Or for housekeeping, we might say, oh, there are ants in room 208, and there are also ants down in the dining room next to the coffee. So we need to help people be able to guide where they're going. So that's important. That's the only time, though, that you're going to identify an area or a room number. You never identify the person in the room. That is important for you to remember and to do that correctly. Now, sometimes when we're in the middle of resident council, someone will say, hey, I lost all my clothes and blah, blah, blah. And then they'll start talking. What we need to do in those cases, we need to say, oh, let's talk about the service, the policy. How do we do our clothing? And when does that happen, that you've lost clothes? How much time do we have to replace the clothes? But what I would like to do, I want to find out right now how many people have lost clothing. So I take a vote on that. 2 people have lost clothing, and 1 person lost a jacket 2 months ago. Okay, so what I will say to them, the policy is we need to find out that your item is lost. You need to write out a grievance form for us and state everything that article has, whether it was pockets on it, what color it was, whether it had buttons on it, so that we can identify it. And then we'll do a check. And we have about 2 weeks to find out where that piece of article clothing is. And if we don't find it and it's listed in their chart, then we do have to replace it. So I'll explain that policy to them, and then I will say, for those people who have missing items, I will meet with you after this meeting and I'll help you write out the lost and found form or your grievance form so that we can locate those items for you. So you don't want to spend time doing personal grievance forms when our business in resident council is to look at system problems. When you're looking at system problems, it also gives you a good opportunity to say, this is the policy, laundry goes down, we have 48-hour turnaround time before it'll be delivered back to your room, or if we lose something, we have a 2-week time where we're going to try to find it, and then we'll replace it. So it gives you an opportunity to share with people what the policies and procedures are, what the staff can and cannot do, so that they have a better understanding of how the building works and a better acceptance of when they feel things are going wrong. At least they'll have an understanding of how it's going to get fixed. Now, when you do your different questions, you want to make sure that in the nursing department, when they ask, gee, my call lights aren't on time, and I have to sit and wait forever. If that's a typical complaint, what you want to do is go back and say, well, can you be a little bit more specific? At what time during the day do you have to wait the longest for your call light to be answered? Is it in the morning? Is it after lunch? Is it when you want to go to bed? And then I also ask them to try to tell me, how many times does this happen during the course of a week? And what I want to do is try to take them from the emotional frenzy of the problem and say, give me some facts so that I can help solve this problem, and we can find out where this problem happens the most or on what floor it happens the most so that we can fix the problem. Help me fix the problem by giving me concrete information about the problem. So some of the nursing questions that you have to ask, you want to make sure that you ask about call lights. You want to make sure about asking about whether they had the proper medication delivered. You want to make sure that they had hydration passes. Sometimes they will have an issue with a certain staff member, and then we want to be very careful about that and make sure that facts are reported correctly and that we write them down, and we may ask how many other people are having an issue with this particular med pass or this particular service that we're giving, and narrow it down. In that case, again, I am not going to reveal who said what, but we will have to talk to that staff member, and that will be a thing where I'm going to say, this was the issue that was brought up, and I'm going to turn it over to the nursing department or the administrator or the HR person or all three so that they can work on that problem and come up with reasonable solutions and safe solutions for everybody. When you get to dietary, sometimes dietary can make the meeting go really long, but you want to make sure that you ask, are you getting your meals on time? Is the hot food hot? Is the cold food cold? Are you getting the right diets? Also, did you get offered an alternative in case you didn't like the meal that was presented to you? Because they do have a right to have an alternative. So you want to make sure you ask those questions. You have to ask activity questions, and a group of those questions are, do you have enough evening activities? Do you have enough weekend activities? Do you have enough outings? Do you like the activities that are presented? Is there something else you want to do? Now, sometimes it's a little hard for us as activity directors to ask these questions, but we have to find out, and it's better to find out what they like and what they don't like so that you can get it on the calendar and make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to do those things. And sometimes, we do have to balance things, like everybody wants to go out to lunch, but the bus can only fit certain people, or a certain number of people, I should say. And so we're going to have to say, okay, these people are going to go at this time, these people go next Wednesday. Or these people will go at 12 o'clock, and these people will go to lunch at 1 o'clock when we do an outing. So you have to break it up, but make sure that they understand everybody will get a chance, but you can't get everybody on the bus at one time. And once they have an understanding of what you have to deal with to get these things done, whether it's in nursing or whether it's the dietary or PT or housekeeping, I have found that the residents become very reasonable once we give them an opportunity to know what the policies and procedures are, how fast can we do this, how much time do we need to do it correctly. And then also it's very important that they understand we're human, they're human, and sometimes we just have to make sure that our people who have problems, like a heart attack down at the end of your hall, doesn't mean you're going to get your call light answered in 10 minutes if we have to rush people down to help out with a heart attack or something that matters. So explaining how a little bit the building works and the policies and procedures is very helpful to the understanding of the residents and the staff so that they can work. They have a better understanding of what each person is doing and what their responsibilities are and how we can get it done safely and efficiently. Now, the next thing that happens with resident council is you write out their grievances, and now you have to take them to those department heads and get responses. Now, very often what will happen is that you won't get the responses back in time. You're supposed to have the responses completed within 3 to 5 days of having the resident council meeting, so that you can give them to the administrator, who then will read through them all and make sure that people are following up. So if they said that call lights are not being answered on this hall, are they going to have an in-service on the 300 hall to make sure that call lights are getting answered, or find out why they're not getting answered? So that is the process where you go through the follow-up. So you write out the grievance, you give it to each department head along with a copy of the notes from the resident council, and you say, this is the problem, how do you want to solve it? They'll write that out to the administrator, and the administrator will go over and make sure that the follow-up action is done. Again, I just want to impress upon you that resident council is a very important tool that